16. Summer 1999. Kate's cousin, Colin, moved to Metro a few years later. Metro was one of the biggest cities in the north. Kate decided she was going to move to Metro since she loved the city. She thought the two cities would be similar. Without telling anyone but Colin, she packed up her things, caught the red-eye flight, and met up with him the next day to explore Metro. Her family was upset she had left without their knowledge. By leaving Paramount, they felt she was no longer protected and safe. Kate called for a car to take her from the airport to downtown Metro. Nervous about this adventure, she thought of herself as a fugitive, running from Paramount without her family's blessing. The driver noticed her fidgeting in the back seat. He turns down the radio playing All Star by Smash Mouth and asks her,
"What brings you to Metro?"
While studying her carefully in the rearview mirror, she looks at him with her curious brown eyes and jokes,
"I'm here to become famous."
The driver about slammed on his brakes. He continued to glare at her in his mirror for another mile or so without saying a word. She did not get a good look at him in the dark. All she could see was the silhouette of his face and body. However, she noticed the reflection of the city lights shining across the ceiling of the car. Swaying back and forth from the rearview mirror, a crystal angel danced in the twinkle of a rainbow prism. He drops her off at Colin's place, looks over his wings, and tells her,
"Good luck. I'll keep an eye out for you."
Like he had known her his entire life. She politely says,
"Thank you,"
and pays for her fare. At the last second, she blurts out,
"Hey, what's your name?"
He waves from the window and says with a smile,
"People call me Raz."
Pausing for a moment to soak it all in, she watched the dark town car's red taillights bounce down the street. She rubs her forehead and mutters,
"Bye, Raz."
Kate sat on top of the apartment building she was staying in and looked out across the river at the cityscape of Metro. Excited about getting to spend 1999 in a huge place, she looked forward to celebrating what people called Y2K. They said it was going to be the end of the world. The Y2K scare was technology-based, where some speculated systems would crash when the computer's computation of the years adjusted from 1999 to 2000. Turns out, the Y2K event did not end the world or crash any systems. However, the gods did not hesitate to capitalize on the occasion. Meanwhile, inexperienced Kate pounded the pavement looking for a job in Metro. Day after day, she walked downtown for interviews, only to get rejected. She started to become disheartened. Out of desperation, if she wanted to stay in Metro, she decided she had to lie about her qualifications and experience by exaggerating on her resume. She eventually found a job by knocking on the side doors of clubs while looking like an alley cat. Without any serving experience, she became a cocktail server at a lounge bar where famous singers performed. Her boss, a gatekeeper and king of the underworld, was surprised to see his kind wandering the streets. He sat down with her and looked over her resume before hiring her, admiring her hustle and persistence to set up a meeting with him. They stared into the soul of each other's eyes. He noticed the innocence behind her bold exterior and gave her a chance to work that weekend. By the time Kate found her new position, she had zero money to survive on and was living off of coffee and cigarettes. The first night at work, she had to deal with a ton of bullshit. Jealous women burned their cigarettes on her knees whenever she bent over and placed their drinks onto the table.
"Ouch, that hurt. Watch it, babes,"
she told them before going to the restroom to clean up. On the way out, the dealers offered her drugs to keep her energy high while working. She declined and was given the side eye. Shaking her head, she returned to her post and kept hustling. On the way back to the bar, Kate was stopped by one of the girls that sat at the table where she was burned by the cigarette. The girl tries talking with her over the live music.
"What's your name?" "Kate, what's yours?"
She replies.
"Happy,"
The girl says.
"No, I'm not happy. They burned the shit out of my leg."
she complains to the girl.
No, my name is Happy.
The girl laughs.
I'm sorry about that. They can be territorial sometimes.
The girl banters back.
Oh, wow, your name is Happy.
Kate laughs.
Cool, no problem. Nice to meet you, Happy.
As she grabs a tray of carafes off the counter.
Good to meet you too. Stay safe, Kate. It's a jungle out there.
The girl advises her. The club began to wind down around 3 a.m. when Kate realized she had been robbed of her tip money. Feeling beat up after going through baptism by fire, she pondered how she was going to make it back to her place with a whopping $14. The night slowly became morning, and Kate left work on foot. She had little money and could not afford a car or taxi. Walking toward the subway, she wished she were back home in Paramount for a brief moment. After buying a pack of smokes, a cup of coffee, and an apple, she wandered down a subway tunnel. It was almost 5 a.m., and she was alone with her thoughts.
How in the hell am I going to make it?
She tosses her coffee cup into the garbage can. Lighting up a cigarette, she took a bite out of her apple. From behind, she hears a sly voice.
Can I have a bite of your apple?
While removing his headphones, playing Hypnotize by the Notorious B.I.G. Startled, she spun around to see a man standing there staring at her. Choking a bit, she says,
Sure, here you go.
Without taking his eyes off of her, he bites into the apple and says,
You know who you remind me of?
Sliding closer to her,
You look like Shirley Temple.
lifting her eyebrows, she blinked her eyes at him. She could see his eyes swirling like he was hypnotized. Then he asked her if he could have her cigarette. Meanwhile, Kate could hear a bunch of guys laughing, hooting, and hollering. Their voices echoed down the tunnel as they got closer. Out of nervousness, she gave the guy another cigarette. He looked over his shoulder, and then toward the sound of the train coming, and then back to his friends laughing. He quietly tells her,
Hurry, get on this train. It's your train.
The train stopped and the doors opened. She jumped on without realizing she was entering on the wrong side of the train. Instinctually, she knew she better get on that train or she was going to end up having to deal with a bunch of takers. The guy turns around and runs back into the tunnel toward the street and shouts,
Yo, we missed the train. Let's go get something to eat. I'm hungry.
And they disappeared out of sight. Once the train doors close, she asks herself,
What the hell just happened?
A few stops later, Kate realized she was traveling in the opposite direction from the river. Looking defeated, she sits on the empty car wondering,
How am I going to get back to the river?
She knew she was lost and looked like it. A few stops later, a bunch of young men dressed in white hopped onto the car and sat next to her. She asks them.
Where does this train go?
Shocked, they look at each other and ask her.
Where are you from?
She explained her situation to them, and they seemed concerned that she was alone in Metro. One of the guys shakes his head and says,
Man, all I know is, if you don't know your way around here and you're not confident, this place will eat you alive.
She asks them.
Where are you all coming from?
They joyously respond with,
Our girl's Keen Senyata. We are drunk off our asses right now.
Another guy sitting quietly tells them,
Hey guys, since she has no money, I'll ride the train back down with her and come back. Tell Mom, I'll be home later.
The train stops at their destination, and they tell her,
Keep your head up.
As they spill out of the train onto the platform. Frankie, their cousin, rode back with her and helped guide her to her stop. He was a spirit from the other world who innocently died from a gunfight on that train the year before. He tells her as she steps off the train onto the platform
Be safe.
and waves goodbye while making his way up to the front of the train. Kate knew she was not going to last another day in Metro without any money. She called her family and made arrangements to return to Paramount the following day. She had been in Metro for 3 months and lost everything. She wasted her entire savings living it up in Metro until it was too late. When the car arrived to take her to the airport, she threw her bags into the trunk. Waving to Colin, she tells him,
If my job calls to find out where I am, tell them I'm dead.
And she hops into the back seat of the car and begins to cry. She was still shocked at how different the world was outside of Paramount. She loved Metro and did not want to go back to Paramount, the place where she felt everything was stuffy and fake. She was energetically drained and hazed as the driver took her to the airport. While looking out the window, Kate remembered a day trip she took earlier that month with Colin to the shore. That was the day the president's son's plane went missing, and the story was all over the news. Standing at the edge of the waters with her toes dug deep into the sand and jeans rolled up, she stared off into the horizon. Squinting her eyes to look further out into the waters, she could see hundreds of ships floating and sailing among the clouds like silk. She asks Colin,
I wonder why there are so many of these cool pirate ships out today. Do you think they're out looking for the president's son?
He turns and looks at her like she's crazy.
Where? I don't see a single ship out there.
She made a face at him and thought he was just being an ass to her again. She suddenly realized he really could not see all of the ghost ships of the past gliding along the waters. A falcon screeched from above and circled the sky. The bird was a confirmation to her that she was able to look into other realms and see spirits. She continued to sit in the sand with amazement and stared at the ships with a twinkle in her eye. Kate's mind returned back to the reflections on the ceiling of the car from the angel crystal dangling from the rearview mirror. She asks herself,
What is the lesson here?
Her takeaway from Metro was that it was an unforgiving place where she was treated as is and raw. What you see in Metro is what you get in Metro, where both angels, with an uppercase A, and demons walked among the crowds. She never felt like she was alone, and authentically, she felt like Metro could be her home, with a whole new awareness that people came from all walks of life. She could see the contrast of Metro to Paramount. Everything was monochromatic and generic in Paramount. The angels with a lowercase a would have liked her to believe Paramount was like the rest of the world. The pressure to conform and follow the angels dissipated from Kate's mind. If there were ever a doubt as to whether she should become an angel, she decides right then.
I'm just a big fish in a small pond, and the angels can fuck off.
Metro was now her point of reference when the illusion of doubt and the energy of self-consciousness was sent her way. The angels in Paramount noticed right away that she had become immune to their judgment. They would ask her questions like,
Are you from here?
And
You don't seem like you're from here.
to reassure their programmed brains, she would clap back with,
Yep, born and raised.
just to annoy them and let them know they were not the only people in the world. 17. Kate's father, Lawrence, was not happy with her when she returned from Metro. He barks at her.
That was a nice little stunt you pulled. Don't ever move like that again without telling anyone.
Lawrence also loved Metro, as he had assisted the gods with the World Series games many times before. As a king of the underworld and trade, he was a major player among the gods and had many talents. He played sports like baseball, basketball, and golf. He was also a hunter and fisherman and enjoyed spending a lot of time outdoors. Since the age of 12, he learned how to play the drums and guitar while being a gopher for the Sacred Heartists. Kate was no stranger to music. Thanks to her father, she would often fall asleep listening to him play the drums or his guitar while singing to her. She learned to love all things musical, which piqued Teddy's interest in her. Teddy also enjoyed playing his guitar in a punk rock band and wrote lyrical poetry. He studied everything about Kate. One of the things he noticed about her while she was in the city was how she sang and danced through the streets like no one was watching. He was captivated by her energy and enjoyed watching her move like the groupie she was not. A collector of things and people, he reminds himself,
I can't believe she's going to be mine.
By the time Kate returned to Paramount, she discovered a new passion and desired to invest in herself and wanted to attend college like her father. She decided to attend the the university her father graduated from. She earned several scholarships from high school and never used them.
I am not paying for your tuition.
Lawrence tells Kate.
Okay, then I will have to invest in myself. I'll use my scholarships.
She sasses back. He continues.
If you end up losing interest and you don't finish what you start, then that's on you, not me.
She realized going to university was going to be an uphill climb. She had to start over after living and losing everything in Metro. She made a lot of bad financial decisions and had no place to live, and she applied for tuition assistance and cashed in scholarships to get started with school. Dedicated to investing in herself, she hoped her education would help lead her out of Paramount and send her to a place where she felt like she belonged. After losing her vehicle, she ended up riding the bus to school and work. Public transportation reminded her of those adventures in the city and Metro. Riding the bus was the best decision she made because she connected with good people on her way to and from school, people who were also motivated to succeed in life. Kate reminded herself that normal people do normal things and abnormal people do abnormal things. As she cruised around on her Chevrolets, she knew people were judging her every move. She appeared wild and crazy to the people of Paramount because she was not afraid to live life dreaming big while looking like she had hit rock bottom. She didn't see starting over as rock bottom or an abyss to climb out of. All of those years she had watched others fold and go out at the poker table taught her that being down was just a place where you could collect treasures on the cheap. All of her fair weather friends that wanted to hang out and party with her while she was working with the Sacred Heartists were nowhere to be found now that she owned a bus pass. She learned a hard lesson that people would use you for your money, clothes, rides, and status. She disliked the way they abandoned her and how it made her feel. She wanted to know if someone liked her for her and not for what she could give them. Striving to live a life like her grandfather, Rusty, who was wealthy but intentionally looked poor. Kate's brief trip to Metro left her looking broken on the outside, but she kept her cool on the inside. She had no problem stretching $1, often enjoying the challenge of finding a good deal. Her go-to pieces of clothing were a worn-out jean jacket, new sneakers, faded jeans, and a graphic t-shirt. She rocked the shit out of whatever she was wearing. She kept her hair dark and long, wore minimal makeup, lip gloss, and the occasional red lip, a true classic in style. Kate began college during the fall of 2000, where she set her schedule and goals toward becoming an attorney, inspired by all of the people she saw working in the financial district, as well as all of the law students hanging out at the campus water fountain in Metro. She knew she was going to face many challenges going to school, but she kept her drive and focus, determined to achieve several degrees like her father accomplished at the age of 40. Kate's first semester was an adjustment. She was used to the semi-formal handshake of the Sacred Heartists, where people shook hands to exchange business cards. When she met with her fellow college students, they froze when she extended her hand to shake. After a few seconds of awkwardness, they would laugh and say,
"Give me a high five."
Or,
"Knuckles, yo."
Those small nuances stood out to her in the beginning. This also gave her social anxiety to be informal and made her feel like an oddball. Kate continued to walk and ride the bus to campus, rain or shine. She was able to get a work-study job on campus at the gym. This is where she meets her new best friend, Tony Kent. He also rode the bus to school. They became instant friends and bullshitted about everything and anything. They shared cigarettes between class and work, drank tons of coffee, and played chess at the local watering hole, discussing the meaning of life and the latest campus buzz. They both enjoyed sneaking into the movie theater and were huge fans of Quentin Tarantino and Wachowski films like Kill Bill, and The Matrix. Kate felt like she finally found a set of friends she could trust and be herself with. While adjusting to college life, she was being studied by the angels, stalked by the ghouls, guided by the gods, and protected by the insects. As for Teddy, he eventually made his way to Kate's school and tried to maintain a low profile. He was a practical person and made every move count. Not only did he end up moving to Paramount to escape the city and find Kate, he also knew he would be partaking in the official games of the gods, the World Games. The World Games were created for the gods to test their best champions' unique talents while representing the gods and their families. Kate was led to apply to work for the World Games, and she was selected through a rigorous vetting process. This meant she would be paid to work with the best of the best for 2 weeks during the World Games. Meanwhile, Teddy was already partying with friends while running satellite operations for the regular games of the gods. He thought he was adjusting well to living in Paramount, and that he was doing a great job at tracking the ghouls' activities to report back to the gods. However, he did not know the angels were observing him and watching his every move. He was completely unaware of the angels' tactics. The gods were more concerned with the ghouls' activities. They did not know about the grand science experiment put into place by the angels. The angels immediately took notice of him as he moved in closer to Kate. To work on his part of the prophecy, he needed to engage with her. Trusting Claire and Thomas with his life, he remembered what Claire had told him before he left the city. While casting a powerful binding spell onto the both of them,
all you need to do is meet her and let the magic do its work.
Being the master of the universe, Teddy was able to influence and control networks and systems. This made him confident, feeling like he had all of the trade scroll business under control. When Teddy finally found Kate on campus, he thought to himself,
"She's prettier in person than on film or in pictures."
He noticed how focused she was on her coursework. She did not spend a lot of time with any one person as she walked to and from classes on campus. He followed her around campus for a few weeks to keep track of her schedule. While standing outside of the campus bowling alley, smoking a cigarette and listening to Wonderful by Everclear, he got a tap on the shoulder. Someone handed him an envelope and walked away. Flipping his cigarette butt, he reviewed reports about Kate. The report included things like the days she worked at the gym, who she hung out with on and off campus, where she studied, which classes she was taking, and the kinds of foods she liked to eat. He stuffed the paperwork back into the envelope and smiled. He was satisfied with all of the new information he had on her. He wanted to make sure he knew everything about her life before making any moves. Meanwhile, Kate told herself,
"It would be nice to date someone, but I refuse to have my heart broken again like I did in high school."
Her thought process about love made her emotionally unavailable to any guy that approached her in class or on campus. She had no problem telling a guy no when they asked her out. One interpretation of the prophecy suggested Kate would return to a former lover or boyfriend who had to make things right for doing her wrong, that this person would have to have enough love for her to help her break the curse of the hybrid eclipse and then become a king of trade. She had many suitors and learned a lot from them, but she never felt like she was in love with any of them. They all became her friend and lost hope of ever being the love of her life that needed to make amends. Kate eventually tells herself,
"I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. I'm independent and I don't need anyone but myself."
Over time, she learned to be comfortable with herself while strengthening her heart and mind. She rescued herself when things did not go well. She was not the kind of person to wait around for a knight in shining armor. She wanted to become an attorney so she could fight her own battles. There were so many obstacles being thrown at Kate by the angels. They tried every angle to coerce her to become an angel. and again. When they were unsuccessful, they would deceive the public by trying to make her look like she was one of them, using her natural charisma and attraction to increase their number of members. She knew attending school would not be all work without any play, so she made sure her schedule included some fun and took courses like billiards and fencing. The following semester, Kate signed up for astronomy, acting, and ballet. What better courses for someone who loved the stars and the universe, the world of make-believe, and the magic of dance? She made sure her free time would also help her earn as many credits as possible, so she joined clubs, councils, and committees to socialize. Rusty was a political influence in her life, and he attended the events she chaired and coordinated. She was naturally a people person and shined in the arena of politics, but the angels did not favor her. They minimized her influence, as long as they were unable to benefit from her success. Rusty kept an eye on her while she attended school. He was there to monitor and guide her as events unfolded in her life by checking in with her periodically. Once Teddy figured out Kate's course schedule, he made arrangements for the both of them to spend the entire day together in class. If he wasn't in class with her, he made sure to become friends with the people she met with. He wanted their worlds to collide without it being obvious. He fell in love with her the second they met. Kate had a new secret admirer. Meanwhile, Kate learned how to master her organizational skills and studied a lot. She did not notice Teddy in her courses, or that he was following her around on campus. She had other things to worry about, like catching the bus on time to get to work or to get home and study. At this time, she was living with her grandmother, Ariadne, while she went to school. Rusty and Ariadne were no longer together. Ariadne lived alone and close to campus. She helped take care of her grandchildren. Kate saved enough to buy herself a clunker to drive to school. Her grandfather, Louis, taught her how to fix her car when it broke down, which helped develop her mechanical mind. Kate began to struggle in school, finding the angels' microaggressions and treatment of her challenging. She would return home after a long day at school and cry. Ariadne tells her,
"Oh my, sweetheart, why don't you find yourself a good job and just leave that place?"
Kate heard nothing of quitting and tells herself,
"Why would I ever quit school? I would be giving up on myself. I'm the only one who hasn't."
Her determination and persistence were the traits the gods both loved and loathed about her. 18. Teddy hopped out of bed every morning with a bounce in his step and headed to campus to hang out with Kate. He got to see her up close and personal every Tuesday and Thursday, just as he had planned. Following her everywhere, the best part of his day was to watch her walk into the observatory and sit in the seat in front of him. He noticed how efficient and thorough she was. He liked how she was both predictable and unpredictable. Observing her interactions in the classroom, he admired her confidence, especially when she asked questions and challenged the professors. Highly entertained by her, she became his favorite show. A few weeks into the semester, Kate met a guy at the gym named Brutus. He was much older than her, and he was very bold and confident. A former intelligence officer from the East, he treated her in a way she had never been treated before. He took control of their time together. She felt protected, older, and sophisticated when she was with him. He was tall, bald, and apparently a dangerous man. When she asked around about him, her advisors told her that they heard he had killed a lot of people and that she needed to be careful dating him. She did not know he was gathering information on her. He was quick to pick up on the angels' motives to monitor her every move and found them to be in the wrong for asking him to spy on her. While out on a date with Kate, Brutus told her things like,
"It's not fair. You should be attending balls and galas and getting dressed up in beautiful gowns."
She had no idea what he was talking about. Soon after they began dating, they were leaving the gym and walked out to his car. When she opened the door to his vehicle, she found a pearl necklace on the floor of his car. She thinks to herself,
"Who the fuck is wearing pearls these days? Older ladies do."
She reaches down and picks them up and says,
Pearls?
He didn't realize they had slid out from underneath the seat while he was driving. His face turned bright red. While looking down, he says,
"The necklace belongs to my wife. She is moving here from the city to attend school with me."
Completely stunned, she tried to save face and look for the wisdom to be learned regarding the situation. Kate learned so much about Brutus in their short time together. He told her about his life as a high-level security guard for royal families. He took the time to teach her about great war leaders and about ghoulish ideologies and threats. He gave her many historical books about war to study. He told her that she was going to need to learn how to defend herself and that he would be watching out for her. Bold enough to share the truth about his wife, this caused their relationship to come to a halt. They stopped seeing each other immediately, and they never spoke again. The angels succeeded in sending him in to collect information about her life to distract her from Teddy. They noticed him heading her way and attempted to create an obstacle for him. Kate, still unaware of the trade scroll prophecy or the curse, began to doubt her ability to see through all of the external noise. She was having trouble focusing on her goals and allowed other people's barriers to become her own. All she knew was that life was difficult, unpleasant, and full of heartbreak. When she was about to succumb to the lies and give up, she remembered it was up to her to bring the rope that would help her climb out of any quicksand. She had this way of staying open-minded in order to keep going and persevere through hardship. Her heart would never allow her to wither away and die. She was connected to the source. The spirits whispered to Kate from the other world,
"Stay the course. There is a lot more going on than the mind can see."
She could sense the world around her was fake and arranged in unnatural ways. She decided to review the books she had been given by Brutus.
How odd that he would give me these books to read about.
As she tosses them into the trash after reading them, she was still upset he failed to tell her about his marriage. His idea of sexy espionage work included tasting the forbidden fruit. A short time after Kate stopped seeing Brutus, she was walking through campus in deep thought, still thinking about those damn books, when out of nowhere, a spunky guy with golden hair and striking blue eyes tried to catch up with her. She turned to glance at him to see what he wanted.
"I hate my mom,"
Teddy blurts out to her. She paused, raised her eyebrows, while squinting her eyes at him. She stands there in thought.
What is it with all of the odd shit people say?
And shakes her head. She was in no mood to deal with another guy's bullshit. Because she was a nice person, she waited for him to say something. Heartbroken, she had been crying the entire day while walking through campus. Teddy could tell something was wrong with Kate. He tells himself,
"Fuck it. She needs me to cheer her up,"
and chases her down to get her attention. It took her a few minutes to recognize his face to make the connection. She pipes up and says,
"Hey, aren't you in my acting class?"
He replies,
"Yeah, I think we also have astronomy together."
Instantly, she decided she liked him and was delighted to have someone to hang out with in both of her classes that semester. She thought about what he said about his mother, thinking about a recent psychology lesson she had just learned about being cautious of men who disliked their mother, as she began to analyze him. His dislike for his mother was a red flag. It was considered bad news for the women who loved them, because these men treated their mates like their mothers. The dark, twisted, I can fix people side of her shrugs.
Meh, who cares? He seems like a cool guy. We can be friends.
Teddy didn't say a lot to Kate as they walked around campus together, and she didn't seem to mind. Comfortable in each other's minds and thoughts, they didn't realize they were communicating telepathically the entire time. He attempted to tell her more about his life, but was careful not to disclose too much. She tried to piece together the breadcrumbs he gave her. On those rare occasions he talked with her, without judgment or knowledge of what the hell he was trying to express to her. All she knew was that she liked his smile and sense of humor. Teddy enjoyed playing games with Kate when they played games like dominoes. They mirrored each other's moves, resulting in lockouts, which spooked him. He felt like he had met his match and thought she was wicked smart. She laughed at his clever use of puns. He could not get enough of her smile and the way her eyes lit up when she saw him. One day, while Kate and Teddy sat in the computer lab, she received an email from him. He sent her an article of some criminal offense he had been charged with. The email came across to her like it was a joke.
Come on, this is a fake story. Why would he share this with me?
She tells herself. Glancing over at him with a puzzling look, he waited for her reaction. The story seemed so unreal, she didn't take it seriously. She was used to being around people with checkered pasts and believed most people deserved the benefit of the doubt, probably since she had been mistreated, misjudged, and treated like an outsider her entire life. Teddy hurried to send Kate another email while she gathered her things and stuffed it into her bag. And before she closed out her browser to log off, she noticed another email from him titled "Kiss My Ass," and she laughed. Opening the email, lip kisses spread out across her screen. When she tried to click on them to close them out, the lips would jump to another place on the screen. She thought this was the funniest thing she had read.
How is he doing that?
She asks herself.
I've got a wise guy over here.
She smirks. While shaking her head at him, he smiled and laughed at her. Teddy, the master of the universe, was having a grand time using his power to play with Kate. She giggled while logging out of her computer and left for class. The rest of the semester, Kate and Teddy sat together in class and partnered up on coursework assignments. He walked her to ballet class and attended performing art events with her. Every now and then, he would give her things, like a picture of the universe. He would just stare at her while she looked at the picture and tried to make sense of it, confused as to why he wanted to give her a picture of the universe. She tells herself,
this guy is crazy,
giving her mixed messages, wanting to give her the universe, and that he was the master of the universe. He was in love with her, and she was totally clueless. To Kate, Teddy was a mystery and a puzzle to be solved. One day after class, he tells her,
I'm going home. I'm going to miss class.
She responds with something cute like,
okay, bring me something back.
He replies with,
what do you want?
I don't know. Maybe something from where you're going, like a baseball hat?
While smiling at him. When Teddy returned from the city, he brought Kate more gifts, a baseball hat and an enchanted figurine made of jade. He wanted to make sure they were alone when he gave her the items. As he pulls the figurine from his backpack, she asks him where he got it, and he replies,
an auction.
The gifts were special to her, since he had become close to her in a short amount of time, but there was something off about the green statue. Feeling safe around him, and that he genuinely liked her, she ignored the random vibes she picked up from the gift. Kate was okay with Teddy's distant behavior and mysterious ways. She had no idea the kind of powers he had on her. Normally, she never thought twice about making friends. She knew people would eventually go their own way, but he didn't go away. She had a feeling he would be in her life forever. The idea of having friends in Teddy's world was unrealistic, where everyone aimed ruthlessly to be on top. He adored the way she thought of him as a friend, unsuspecting of the spells he cast onto her to fall in love with him. 19. Kate rubbed her eyes and rolled out of bed to get ready for school. On the way to the kitchen, her grandmother, watching the television, exclaims,
"We're going to war."
The city of Metro was on fire and had been attacked by an unknown group of people. Kate grabbed her phone and called her astronomy professor to ask whether she should go to class. He proceeds to tell her in a solemn voice,
"This is tragic. Don't worry about coming to class today."
Her world was changing before her eyes, while the community was in a stupor. The day before, Teddy was playing games with the gods from his base of operations in Paramount. What appeared to be a mistake on his part led to a major disaster. This was actually an intercepted play designed by both the angels and the ghouls. The angels were able to isolate and mimic his communications in their controlled environment. The ghouls piggybacked off the angels' pseudo-networks to infiltrate the gods' systems. Both the angels and the ghouls created ghost systems to clone programs and intercept Teddy's gameplay. He was completely unaware they were tracking his every move to mimic him. He was informed by the gods that he failed to cover all of his bases, and that the sole responsibility for the disaster was his. The gods came down on him hard, and some might say they momentarily banished him from playing the game. The gods used this error to take extra steps to enslave him to do their bidding. By dictating his moves, they were able to interfere with and deter him from finding his true love. Opportunities to play in the gods' games were given to exceptional players once in a lifetime. Despite his knowledge and confidence that he had done his best, if not his very best, the ghouls were successful in hiding the catastrophe they created. He was now haunted with the horrors of losing the game despite winning. Feeling like a complete failure, Teddy began to drink heavily to numb the pain. Being reminded daily of the heavy losses, tremendous doubt has him cursing Thomas.
Why didn't you tell me about X, Y, or Z? How could you leave me alone? I did everything I could to play the way I always do, just like you taught me.
Emotions began to eat away at him, and he spiraled into hermit mode. Truth be told, this event was his fate. The foundation of his trials was to learn discernment. This significant loss of the game would eventually make him stronger, both mentally and strategically. But would it make him wiser? Turning inward, he combined his power and skills to force the gods to change the game. By creating his own community of players, he implemented a new way to play the game. The new rules of the game played out like a real-time, ongoing game of Dungeons and Dragons. The darkness and void inside of him began to grow from the guilt he carried with him, the loss the ghouls had successfully framed him for. He was the best player of them all, confident, intelligent, and a daring misfit. Having a love-hate relationship with the conventional, he did all he could to mask the punk rock star inside of him in order to blend in. Kate had not seen Teddy for a few days and was upset he left her hanging to complete their group assignment on her own. Coursework was the last thing he cared about at this point, but how was he going to explain to her?
Oh hey, I just fucked up royally and allowed Metro to be destroyed.
Somehow, he knew he needed to overcome and survive the catastrophic event that left him dealing with no man's land. He never returned to class to finish out the semester, and she went about working on her goals. The following semester, Kate was sitting alone having her lunch in the cafeteria on campus when Teddy shows up out of the blue. He looked like he had seen a ghost and was running from something. Striding toward her, he plopped down in the chair next to her. He was exhausted. Having had the ass-whooping of his life, they sat in silence, staring at each other. As she dipped her chicken nugget into her sauce, she scanned the fresh shiner and scratches all over his face. Leaning in with his elbows on his knees facing her, he wanted to cry. He had so much to say but could not. Even though she was upset with him for disappearing, they both sat in silence, communicating telepathically while she finished her food.
I don't know what's going on, but are you okay?
She signals.
I'm so sorry, I can't tell you what I've been doing. All I know is that I fucked up.
He returns. She knew he was hurting and somehow he had messed up. Standing up to put on her backpack, she gently grabbed his shoulder to give him a squeeze. He watched her walk over to dump her tray in the trash bin and disappear to her next class. Teddy closed his eyes, placed his face into the palms of his hands, while tears began to roll down his cheeks. He could not share any more information about the games with Kate in order to keep her safe. He was so tired of being so close to love and having to wait. The curse was real, and he could not give up, and this drove him mad.
May you be happy. Yeah, right.
He mumbles to himself about the Master Scroll's message. He thought about all of the cute messages she gave him. All of a sudden, his ears perked up. The song Don't Worry, Be Happy by Bobby McFerrin was playing over the school speakers. He wiped the tears from his eyes and pulled out a circular yellow piece of paper. A dazed and confused smiley face with the words Don't Worry, Be Happy was written on it. She gave it to him when she saw that he was sad earlier that year. Earlier that day, Teddy had tapped into his powers to see his future timeline with Kate. He learned where their timelines would connect and where they became parallel and mirrored one another. He needed to be on the timeline where they connected to fulfill the prophecy and live happily ever after. The piece of paper in his pocket with the smiley face and the song playing with Kate being present was off by minutes. The timelines had to line up perfectly, but it did not happen. There were few opportunities to achieve this immersion of timelines, and it seemed like he would never be able to outwit fate or rid himself of the curse. His hope of fulfilling the prophecy and elevating the planet with her slipped away again.
I don't know why I even try,
he scoffs, while stuffing the piece of paper back into his pocket. He heads back to his dorm room to hang out with his friends. Kate eventually moved into her own place and connected with her new friend from work, Jacob. He was much older than her. She struggled with daddy issues since her parents' divorce. The feeling of abandonment stemmed from never seeing her father. Filling that void had her looking for love in all the wrong places, and she was painfully aware of it. Jacob was kind to her and helped guide her with life's pressing questions. He was aware of the slanderous stories people told about her. He struggled with the idea that the person she would fall in love with would betray her. He was not a selfish person and could not betray her. He succeeded in having her fall in love with him. However, the pressure of becoming the king of trade made him doubt his relationship with her. He was already a wealthy man, and his family prospered from being affiliated with one of the trade scroll's masters, the Master of Men. His love for her became an unhealthy obsession, and he had to distance himself from her. He moved to the south and left Kate in Paramount. He continued to guide her from afar. He told himself that the distance would either make their bond stronger or their loving relationship would eventually end. Kate was sad another relationship had ended, and she blamed herself for never fully giving herself to any one person. The curse would never allow her to love that deep. Attending college was challenging because guys became more of a distraction from her main goal of finishing school. She convinces herself,
"Why should I date at all? I should just enjoy spending time with my friends." But even then, they will also end up leaving. Focus on your goals. The knowledge you gain from your education can never be taken away from you.
By this time, Kate was really busy training to work at the Gods World Games. She also found herself busy competing in mock trials and running for office on campus, and began to make frenemies. She had to deal with a lot of jealousy, which was nothing new. Her new stomping grounds brought in some negative attention from both sororities and fraternities. She despised the idea of buying her friends. She felt the lifestyle was superficial and just another way for people to try to control her by telling her what to do. She did not join any groups. To her surprise, people belonging to those institutions went to the same parties. Seeking out authentic friendships made her a bit of a loner, feeling like this was a rare trait to be found in people. She was also surprised when she found out Teddy had decided to rush and become a pledge in a fraternity. While walking through campus at night, Teddy asked Kate to attend a formal fraternity event with him. She happily accepted, since she enjoyed her time with him. He introduced her to his friends from the dorm, and they looked out for her on campus. He kept his eye on her from a distance because he could not get that close to her. Living a dangerous life playing the game, he knew how easily she could become the target at any moment if something went sideways. The less she knew, the better. One evening after hanging out on campus, Kate decided not to go back to her place and sleep. She wanted to spend the night with Teddy in his dorm room. They walked back to his room and laid down on his bunk bed to cuddle. They did not kiss or do anything but sleep. They were in sync mentally, and all was well between these two cursed and abandoned souls. There was a comfort between them, like they had known each other for several lifetimes. When Kate woke up the next morning, she quietly got up, put on her green sneakers, and walked home. As she walked across campus back to her place, she noticed the sunrise. It was the most beautiful color of orange and yellow she had ever seen. The gods were both smiling and disapproving of where their relationship was heading. They came from very different worlds. They met in what seemed like a secret to enjoy each other's company and friendship. Their vibe was perfectly imperfect. The date for the formal dinner arrived, and attendance was a part of Teddy's initiation. Kate showed up wearing an asymmetrical turquoise mid-hemline dress with beige sandals. Looking like a goddess with her long dark brown wavy hair and glossed lips, Teddy's heart skipped a beat. She leveled him with her long tan legs and beautiful smile. He was also dressed to show out, wearing black on black. They were the most adorable couple, and for a moment the gods favored them. He was seen as the man for bringing a hottie to the formal with him. The fraternity thought Kate was one of the prettiest girls on campus. Teddy's big brother Brock was pleased that he brought her with him. He wanted her all for himself. At dinner, Kate met with some of the girls from the fraternity's sister sorority. They laughed, snapped photos, and carried on about how cute Kate and Teddy were at dinner. As the night progressed, Kate had to use the restroom, and she left Teddy's side to find the powder room. When she tried to exit the restroom, she was greeted by Brock, who backed her into the corner. Grabbing her by the legs, he ran his hands up her thighs while pulling up her dress. She was dying inside because he was Teddy's big brother. How she treated him in that moment could potentially have an effect on Teddy's initiation. She knew if she were to tell Brock to
beat it, creep,
there would be repercussions. So she attempted to laugh it off and moved his hands around to the front of her. He pushed her back again, with force this time, onto the counter. While grabbing her ass, he sloppily tried to stick his tongue down her throat. She was disgusted by this piece of shit, literally stuck between a rock and a hard place. She noticed that he was drunk off his ass and knew things could get a lot worse if she tried to fight him off. Her inner tomboy kicked in and she reached around Brock's back and yanked him down by the back of his shirt. Sliding her leg down between his legs, she stood straight up with force. Losing his balance, he fell back into the opposite wall. She hurries up to adjust her clothing and says,
I better go find Teddy. He's probably looking for me.
And runs out of the room as fast as she can. Kate turned the corner and ran into Teddy. With her hands on his chest, she gets close and pants.
Oh good, I found you.
She felt terrible and guilty for Brock's behavior, not hers. Teddy looks at her and says,
It's okay. I was just about to jump into the pool.
Kate laughs and says,
With your suit on? You're so funny.
Teddy held his hands out wide and smiled. It was in this moment she recognized how much she cared for him, like she had always been his ride or die. Kate was a snob about the things she enjoyed in life. Her classic style and taste were impeccable. The way society treated her in Evil Paramount was like garbage. She did not see herself as being privileged or having a place where she belonged, conditioned to believe that no matter how hard she tried, she would always be less than the angels that surrounded her. She tried to explain this feeling of not being worthy to Teddy, and he didn't seem to mind or care what the angels thought. In that moment, he decided she was perfect. However, the gods did not. Meanwhile, Kate didn't know if Brock would try to brag about his forced attempt to violate her or act like she was interested in him. She assumed Teddy would eventually find out and be upset, and this bothered her. The gods and the angels had found another way to circumvent any progress made between their relationship. Some of the gods were notorious for destroying divine relationships. They coveted true love, envious of something they could not manufacture for themselves. They could be pompous and envious of other people's happiness, especially if they thought one or both parties were not worthy of merit. 20. Kate became friends with one of the sorority girls from the formal, whose name was Pam or Pamela Winters. The two met again on campus on a day when Kate was having a difficult time adjusting to social pressure. Brooding on the university steps, she was upset and alone. She had just been told by her peers on her mock trials team that she needed to
make it easy for us and just convert
and become an angel. Attempting to process the results of the mock trials competition, she made a funny face because she noticed an awful smell, like there was something dead blowing in the wind. She lifted up her foot to see if she had stepped in dog poop, but there was nothing. She could not tell where the smell was coming from. Standing up to move away from the smell, she repositioned herself at the top of the stairs and sat down again. Pam, who was also a gaudy ghoul, approached Kate. With her perfectly coiffed hair, glittery eyeshadow, pink polo, and loud perfume, Pam asked Kate if she would like to join her in a study group. Remembering Pam from the formal and fraternity parties, Kate thought she might be cool to hang out with. Pam did a good job at pretending to be genuine, but underneath she was deeply jealous of the attention Kate was getting from her fraternity brothers. She needed to know why they liked her so much, and then she could decide to either keep her new friend or destroy her. Being that Kate did not play by the hierarchy rules of clubs, Pam had to gain Kate's trust in a short amount of time and began to groom Kate to become part of a ghoulish ritual, a ritual Kate would not willingly want to be a part of. Since Kate was already in a vulnerable state, Pam knew manipulating her would be easy, like she had done to others many times before. Pam knew Kate liked Teddy and had taken a couple of photos of the both of them at the formal dinner. Pam gave the photos to Kate to gain her favor, but on the back end, she was doing all she could to keep them apart. What Kate did not know was that in her attempt to get away and run from the angels, she ended up befriending a ghoul, a sworn enemy of the gods. Pam's family were all ghouls. She told Kate she did not like her family because they did not like her choice of friends. She meant Kate. Mirroring Kate, she fakes her story and sobs.
All I ever wanted was to be normal.
Unable to see that she was being targeted, Kate bought into Pam's lies, believing she too was also an outsider. Pam brought Kate along to more group activities. The study group began to love bomb Kate by telling her how great she was and how much they wanted to get to know her. Attracted to her charm like flies on honey, the study group wanted her to join them. She expected this type of behavior from the angels. Something was wrong, but she could not identify what it was exactly. After about a month of non-stop outings with the group and not seeing her regular friends, she wished to spend more time with Teddy. When she wasn't being pressured to attend more group activities, she would look out for him. He disappeared, and she thought it was because he was mad at her because of what happened with Brock. Jacob often reached out to Kate and noticed she had been missing in action for several weeks. He made several attempts to contact her. She saw his missed phone calls and messages. Attempting to distance herself from the group, she wanted to get in touch with her regular friends. Kate lies and tells Pam she's sick and won't be able to go to an activity, so she could call Jacob back and talk with him. She told him all about the new group of people she was hanging out with. He tells her,
Kate, you may want to be careful. It sounds like you're interacting with a cult.
This confirmed her suspicion that something was off about the group. As time went on, Kate began to notice how they kept her from going home to her place and spending time with her friends outside of the group. When she made time for herself, they would have someone stop by her place and ask her why she wasn't going to activities with the group anymore. The group was starting to annoy her. She told Pam she was going to stop hanging out with them because at the last home group, they sat around laughing and joking about,
"Some people think we are a cult."
The word got around that she was leaving the group, and the pressure to spend time with them intensified. She used her avoid the bully skills she learned in high school to evade as many of the group members as she could. Kate's life seemed to be falling apart outside of spending time with Pam and the group, feeling isolated to the point where she was not even talking with family or friends. She reached out to her mother, Jackie, and learned she had converted to become an angel. Devastated that her mother became part of an evil group that had done so many things to her, she felt betrayed, and those betrayals kept coming. The night before going to a party with Pam, Kate received a strange call from Teddy. She was happy to hear from him. She needed her friend to keep her company and help her escape the group. She asks him,
"Where are you? I've been looking all over for you."
He replies,
"I'm on a boat,"
and laughs. She laughs with him.
"Okay, are you coming to the fraternity's Christmas party this weekend?"
Hopeful he would be there, he tells her,
"I can't. I was kidnapped. That's why you haven't heard from me."
Rolling her eyes out of disbelief, It was true. Mutual friends of the gods knew he was interested in her, and they had to make sure he stayed busy. The both of them were getting too close, and the gods could not have that. He was going through his own trials at the time, atoning for errors he made while playing the game. The gods were having a grand time holding that mistake over him to do their bidding. Kate and Pam arrived to the frat party. Pam tells Kate,
"You should talk to Brock. He likes you."
Leaning back against the car door, Kate wonders where the weird smell was coming from. She responds with,
"I don't think Teddy would appreciate me talking with Brock."
Teddy was not her boyfriend, but the big brother, little brother fraternity dynamic between Teddy and Brock made the entire situation super awkward and shady. Besides, Kate was not interested in Brock at all. Pam rolls her eyes and says,
"Where is Teddy anyway? I don't ever see you talking with him anymore. All I'm saying is, if you want to hook up with someone tonight, Brock is interested."
Doing her best to avoid being the center of attention, Kate slipped in and out of the kitchen to grab drinks. Being that she was under a lot of stress with school, as well as trying to avoid people pounding down her door to get her to go to their group meetings, she slammed down a few shots. After some arm twisting and peer pressure, she found herself doing a keg stand outside. After being lowered down, she realized she could no longer stand. The party was getting wild quick. A couple of guys helped her up and led her back into the house. Kate stumbled into a room where some intense beer pong was going on. All of a sudden, all eyes were on her.
Fuck.
She cringes inside. The crowd of guys began to chant,
"Show us your tits! Show us your tits!"
Directed toward Kate, she stood there like a deer caught in the headlights. For a split second, she thought about flashing the group of guys, and then she saw Brock.
Ugh, what a snake.
Vomiting a little in her mouth, she escaped in humiliation out the side door to get into her car. She heard all of the guys in the house groan out of disappointment. Brock followed Kate around the house to her car and hung all over her like a wet towel. She tells Pam,
"I'm going home. Are you good?"
Pam was with her sisters and waved back at Kate.
"Have fun with Brock."
She laughs and belts out aloud.
Woohoo!
Getting situated in her car, she turned on the ignition. The song Without Me by Eminem blasted at max volume, and Brock jumped into her car.
Fucking great.
She shakes her head no.
I am not in a state of mind to make good decisions.
Kate was trying to abstain from sex for a while and hoped to wait until she was in a serious relationship again. Brock was only interested in getting into her car, place, and pants. She knew better, and they stumbled down the stairs to her bedroom. They fell onto her bed, hoping he would just pass out. Unfortunately, he did not. She was not feeling like herself that night and went against her own judgment and slept with him, lying on her back. While looking at the ceiling, tears began to well up and she started to cry. She was upset she wasted her energy on that piece of shit who tried to corner her at the formal dinner. At this stage of her life, she didn't want to be sleeping around with random people, questioning her life decisions.
What in the world are you doing? Messing around with frat boys.
She completely ignored him. He called his friend to come get him so he could go back to the party. He got what he wanted and left to go brag about his conquest, slamming her face and fist into the pillow.
Stupid, stupid, stupid. Never fucking again.
She kicked herself in regret.